Come on in and grab a seat. There's plenty of seats. I'll give a minute for people to settle in. Hi everybody. Welcome to Visions 2025. For those of you that don't know, you're here, so you probably know. But Visions is the Communications Media Department Student Honors Festival Exhibition and Game Showcase. And Alumni Panel. So welcome to the first event of Visions, which is the Alumni Panel. We have a distinguished, not extinguished, panel of 5 graduates of our program. I guess I'm going to have you introduce yourself. So we're going to start here with Traci. So can you just introduce yourself? What program did you graduate from? And then just tell us a little bit about your current work.
Sure. My name is Traci Bartlett. I graduated way back in 2003. I am a very experienced, I'm a SAG actor, experienced in background work and stand-in work. And I do a lot of theater whenever I can. And ask me questions and I'll tell you more, maybe.
Awesome. And Ben? You switched it up, so Wylder.
Gotcha. So I'm Wylder Tallman. I graduated class of 2021, and I was a film video major, and I currently am employed at Boston Digital Productions as the senior editor, as well as the internship supervisor, and I recently concluded work on a 3-part Nova documentary as the assistant editor.
Awesome. Kris?
Hi, everybody. My name is Kris Camp. I was a game design major, and while I was here, I started a company with a few of my friends called Iconic Arts. We're an indie game development studio. Last year, we released our first game for all consoles, Steam, Epic Games Store. And before I pass the mic along, I just want to say that a lot of people from Fitchburg State made it possible for Iconic Arts to be a thing. So I quickly want to yell their names. Veronica Hazen, Finton Neff, there was David Marshall, there's Ben Pilosic, and Allura Leet. Most of them came here as well. Some were in the computer science major, some were in the game design major with me. And I just want to let it be known that I would not be here if it weren't for them.
Erica.
Hi guys, I'm Erica Titus, and I graduated in 2019. I was a graphic design major, and also I think we call it PRSA now. But yeah, and I work for Joshua Allen Design. It's an interior design firm in Sterling, and I do all the marketing and the social media, basically all the graphics, anything that's visual, it's me.
Ben?
Hi everyone. My name is Benjamin Borodawka, and in 2019 I graduated studying graphic design. And over the years I've moved between graphic design, UX design, and now I'm mostly doing software development and web design at Poland Capital.
It's like, what's a typical day look like, if there is such a thing? And we can start, up front with Traci.
So my day-to-day, how I make my money, I'll tell you that, I'll start off with that, is I'm a virtual billing agent for a telecommunications company. Because I've been there the tenure of a lot of vacation time, and then I use that vacation time for filming and for doing theater and stuff like that. I'll tell you a little bit about my more recent projects. Most recently I've worked on Dexter, Fallout, Salem's Lot, the new Salem's Lot on HBO Max, Julia, Godmother, Spirited, a mixture of background work and stand-in work, which if you don't know what stand-in work is, it can be very lucrative. Basically, they'll use you to help set like the angles and stuff like that. So especially if you know, because I didn't know this, and I went to Fitchburg State, so if you know anyone like 5'1" and under, I didn't know this, so I'll learn you. anyone that you know that's in theater or film or whatever under 5'1", look into stunts, look into stand-in work, look into photo doubling for kids. All right, that's how I got my SAG card. So definitely do that. But my day-to-day basis can be pretty boring. I answer calls, get yelled at. Do that, but it makes it worth it because then that lets me go off and do at night or during the day or what have you. It lets me go off and do my film work and my theater work and whatever it is I want to do. It lets me do the fun stuff with allowing me to also be grown up and be fiscally responsible and all that good stuff and have health insurance and all those things that you have to think about, especially as you get old, as I am. So there you go.
So my day-to-day is fun because in October of 2023, Boston Digital Productions went remote, so I get to wake up when I feel like it now. Yay! But no, so my primary function is editor. What's really great about our company is, starting out as the interns, they really let us do the work. So I've been working on a handful of projects. Most recently, I just finished working on an hour-and-a-half long concert film for last year's American Idol winner from her first big stadium show in Pasadena, California, I think it was. And so my day-to-day is hopping on Zoom calls, working with my bosses and my creative directors, and chipping away at the projects. And then in the evenings, I get to dedicate my time towards trying to build a superhero universe with some other alumni that I'm working with. So just keeping busy, trying to be as creative as possible, and working on whatever technical difficulties come up in my way.
My day today, by day, I am a teacher. By day, I teach an after-school program. I teach Python, game design, a lot of the stuff I'm interested in, and my students are too. And during the nights, we started during COVID. So from the beginning, we were always remote. And that's just how we know how to work. So I just get in a call with my friends and I do a little bit of everything. I make music, I make 3D models, I do animation, programming, whatever's needed. It takes a lot to make a game.
My day-to-day, actually, it varies quite a bit. I'm a stay-at-home mom to an almost 4-year-old. So when I'm not, making snacks and doing all that fun stuff, I work really on whatever we need for graphics. Right now we're launching a brand new venture, Josh. And it's called Sterling and Maple, and it's furniture sales. And so I work on different graphics that we need, different promotional stuff that we need, and then social media posting. It just all depends on what we're doing at that time.
So my day-to-day is sitting in a tall building in Boston at a desk. It's not the most glamorous, but I sort of bridge the gap between marketing and applications teams. We found that tech-focused people don't necessarily communicate the best with marketing-focused people, so I was kind of brought in as this unicorn to kind of make everyone happy and make sure everyone's communicating well and projects are getting done. And at my company, we use the agile methodology of work, and a lot of software teams use that just to make sure things are flowing smoothly. We have stand-up meetings every day to talk about what our blockers are, what we're working on, and what we're going to work on. And generally, we're just working on firm-wide goals for a asset management company.
Fantastic. So all of you, of course, are alumni from our program. So I would like you to think back to your time at school. And were there any classes or projects or activities in school that had a real impact on you? And you can start anywhere. You don't have to go down the line if something comes to mind.
I could speak first. Yeah. I liked pretty much every game design class I had. Although I don't think that would be very helpful if I just mentioned that, because that's obvious. I think for the fellow game designers in here, what I would suggest is actually taking some film classes. And honestly, take classes outside of game design. I'd highly suggest anything with music production, anything with sound design. If you could take a programming class, like, do it. But I got a lot out of film. With game design classes, we looked at a lot of mechanics, and that could be one thing. But I think what the film department here really has is, at least the film class I took, was a lot of critical thinking about a lot of classic films. And just seeing like the ways they played with aspect ratio, the ways they implemented music, how like you can cinematically set a scene and kind of make art that people get lost in. I think that's something that like a lot of game designers need to know. We know games, we know mechanics. What we don't know is how to capture somebody's heart. And I think by getting into film or again like music production, you can do that. But if you're not interested in capturing the heart, just go for programming. It'll help you out so much. Trust me.
I actually, while I was at Fitchburg State, I majored in graphic design, I said, but I dual concentrated in PRSA, and actually, if anyone else in here is a graphic designer, one of my favorite classes that I took the entire time that I was here was what I don't know what they call it now, but it was called document design back then, and we worked with the Fitchburg Art Museum, and it was just, you know, my first experience with a real client, with a real document that I had to design, like, and we were all in it from start to finish. We designed, you know, all the elements. We had to organize all the exhibits on the page and everything like that, and just working back and forth with the client, like, over the course of the semester just really taught me how to actually work with clients in real life. And I'll tell you, I went on my portfolio review and my internship interviews, and that was the star piece of my portfolio.
That's great. Thank you, Erica. So that class does still exist. It's called Client Project Production. Professor Dr. Carr teaches it. And we definitely encourage everybody to take that.
Yeah, it's an awesome class.
Awesome, thanks.
I'll go next. I mean, I wouldn't be half the actor that I am today without the classes that I took with Kelly Morgan and Richard McElvain. Absolutely not, like 100%. I mean, I did the Nurses Romeo and Juliet here. I worked as like part of, it used to be called the Mariculture Arts Festival, where I did the Black Sheep Improv Troupe for 2 years. It was over at Slattery's during the festival. I wouldn't have been even a little bit prepared. I mean, I still do theater now. I mentioned a lot of film, but I still do theater to this day. I just did Piggy and Lord of the Flies. Was part of an ensemble in Wit. I'll be playing Edward Clark in the Gross Indecency of the Three Trials of Oscar Wilde, playing Leominster City Hall in early June, so check it out. But yeah, I wouldn't have known anything if I hadn't taken those classes or voice classes with James Levy. No way. Or the networks that I made through, like, my fellow, students, and because they would look out, they'd send me like all the postings and stuff like that. The connections that you make are going to help you out in the real world. So keep in touch, help each other out, be there for each other. It's tough out there, Yeah, that's what I can say. But yeah, no, absolutely not. No, I'm very glad that I came. I'll end it with that.
I want to actually branch off what you said. Answering the clients and client work was something I felt very prepared for at Fitchburg. I think a lot of the graphic design classes were, designed around design reviews and going through different stages of designs and narrowing down and mocking what it would be like to do a client review. And I think the first 3.5 years of my career were spent in the design agency life, and I think that cutting your teeth in the early stages of your career in the agency life is really important. It helps you hone your skills in many different areas, and that's the thing that I think Fitchburg prepared me the most for. All of the classes from intro to graphic design to history of graphic design, all of them were, I think, designed around the agency way of thinking, and I'm happy for it.
So coming into Fitchburg, I always knew that I wanted to be a video editor. That was always the plan. And while I did a lot of awesome production courses and writing courses, the thing that's really helped me the most with where I'm at now has been Charlie Roberts' editing class and his VFX course that he hosts every now and then. Those two have come in so handy through the last couple of years. Learning about metadata and the back end of Avid, just Avid in general. Like, it gets a bad rap, you know, with such a more Premiere and Adobe focused environment, even DaVinci Resolve. But, you know, knowing Avid and knowing, you know, which software is the most important to use and how to transfer projects between them, it saved projects on a handful of occasions. It really, like, if you're more into like the production side of things, you know, I would definitely recommend still taking an editing course just so you know where your footage is going to end up, how it's going to get manipulated, and giving you a slightly better understanding of, you know, how to shoot for the editor. That's something that we focus a lot at Boston Digital Productions, since we're all production and editor focused. You know, we really highlight that, you know, we're trying to shoot for the final edit and making sure we're feeding enough footage and enough, you know, good footage, not just kind of like throwaway B-roll. Trying to tell a story. And so I definitely think, like I said, knowing the technical and the back end of editing has been massive for me. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. And then, you know, shout out to all the writing courses as well. I tried for a writing minor, didn't quite make it, but I had a good time. You know, it was a lot of fun. It helped to balance everything out a little bit, and met some really awesome people through all of my courses. So I'm very thankful, and yeah, definitely take an editing course if that's not something you're interested in, or if it is something you're interested in, take cinematography. I loved my cinematography course, made a couple of good, really fun shorts out of it, and again, just met a lot of great contacts. So that's what I've got.
So, is there anything that you wish you had done differently while you're at college? Any classes you wish you had taken, any programs you wish you had explored?
Better talk to my fellow film majors. I ended up falling in love with the choir and like the a cappella and the improv side of things, the performance arts, and which are awesome. And I loved it, and I loved every second of it, but it did come at the detriment of making those contacts and making a lot of those connections that I should have. That it's honestly taking me 2 to 3 years post-graduation to reconnect with all those people and start building those relationships that I could have been building freshman year if I, you know, actually spoke up and actually, you know, talked with the people in my classes. So, you know, there's of course classes I wish I could have taken. I still wish I could have taken lighting. You know, that would have come in handy over the years. But no, like my biggest piece of advice for especially the filmmakers out there is talk to the people around you. At the very least, get people's names and numbers, get in the group chat, join a Discord, you know. Because you never know, especially with how tumultuous the industry is now. Those are the people who will have your back. Those are the people who will guarantee you work. And yeah, just make those connections now. Don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait till senior year. Especially if you're like me and graduated with a senior year in COVID. You may just be alone in your parents' bedroom, you know? So, you know, make those connections as soon as you can. And it's never too late to reach out to someone and start building those bonds, you know, that's what's gonna get you work. It's how I ended up with a gig with PBS was because of another alum who was in my VFX course. You know, it's who you know. It's good to know what you know, but it is a lot of times who you know, and the people you know are the people in your classes. So that's honestly one of my biggest pieces of advice is just, you know, talk to people, do the thing, make those connections, you know.
I think one thing that I wish I would have done a little bit differently, I know I already plugged taking classes for PRSA because it just helps so much, but as a graphic designer, I think an area that I lacked in upon graduation was photography, and I definitely think if I would have focused a little bit more of my extra classes, which I didn't have that many because I was transferring in, but if I had done a little bit more in photography, I think that would have, I mean, I got there anyways, but I think it would have just maybe prepared me a little bit better and quicker for that aspect of graphic design.
I'll speak on the graphic design front too. I think my shortcomings in graphic design were always around illustration, and I don't know if I ever took any classes on that. I think taking some foundational courses on that would have been really helpful. I found that like logo design was always a little hard for me, while typography, layout, color, that all came really easily to me in the professional world. That was part of every class though. But also networking is super important. I think that from day one, networking should be front of mind. You know, in the communications industry, it can be sometimes a little bit difficult to, with layoffs, with employment and everything, and it is about who you know, and you want to be front of mind when someone has a job posting and a job opening. If you're being thought of and from that fellow classmate, you know, you'll get that LinkedIn message or that email.
Definitely, I would second that. Well, first, I'll say that being a theater major, I wish that I'd taken more like film classes pertaining to film. That would have been very, very useful. I was under the delusion that like acting for film, you had to be beautiful, you had to be Cameron Diaz. Like, so I focused more on theater. That's not true. That is not true. And also, I will tell you, don't fight your type. Own your type. Don't get frustrated at like, I'm not like the size 2 ingenue. Like, no, there's a place out there for anyone and everyone. Just own it. And also, yes, like I mentioned before, and Wylder mentioned before, like network with each other. Not just that, but when you're on like a pro film set or even in theater, you're gonna meet people like going up the same that you're gonna meet coming up and down. So mind like how you act on theater sets and film sets and stuff like that. Make those connections. Don't burn any bridges because that person that you're working with, that's just a PA. Well, he might be like the second assistant director or the director at some point. Or maybe it's the director of photography next time. You don't know. So just keep yourself professional, keep those connections, and that's going to be your key to success.
I think this one's going to be a little bit hard for me to convey. Try to have fun while you can. I think a problem that I had while I was here is I started the company while I was a junior. And once I got into that mindset, it became like, oh, it'd be nice if we reached this goal. And it turned into, we need to reach this goal in order to get to the next step at where we need to be as a company. And I think there's a lot of good reasons to maybe start thinking about starting a company while you're young, while you don't have too many like adult consequences like paying taxes, healthcare. I'm hoping that you guys have the opportunity not to worry about that yet. But treasure the time you have here and try to have fun and try not to think too much about the destination and think more about the journey. I hope that makes sense.
Well said.
So several of you mentioned networking, the importance of networking. Can you share any practical tips or advice for starting and for maintaining professional networks? And do you belong to any professional organizations, or do you kind of make your own networks?
I can start. I'm lucky that my company has employee resource groups for different topics, and one of the most important pieces of networking for me recently has been out in finance, and that's for people in the LGBTQ community in the finance industry to attend networking events in major metropolitan areas, and Boston has a really strong community for that, so that's been awesome. And I think networking in general is just you get out what you put in, and just sending simple messages to people on LinkedIn just to check in and maintain those connections is important. But I think leveraging whatever systems your company has in place or your university has in place for networking is the first step.
I guess I have an answer. So mainly so for now, a lot like on Facebook, like background actor groups and stuff like that. Like New England background actors, like any group that you can just search and join and just follow the posts. Other than that, I follow like any casting agency that I can. If you want to know like the casting agencies, like through Boston and Providence, New Jersey, New York, come up to me, I'll tell them to you. I'll send you the list. But it's just, for now, the best way as a background actor is either like a Facebook group or either like a WhatsApp group, like groupings on any signal, anything like that.
And going off of that, I wish I had a more legitimate strategy. It's LinkedIn for me is my primary one when it comes to reaching out to folks professionally. But maintaining it, I've actually found sites like Slack and Discord to be monumental in keeping those connections and keeping those, not even just networks, but friendships alive. I've been so much more in tune with everyone since finally getting onto those kinds of sites. And, my circle's only grown and I've gotten a lot of opportunities because of that. And if you're not part of one, I think, start a Slack channel and put everyone you know in it, or a Discord and put everyone you know in it. Even if you're not talking business all the time, at least you're keeping the conversation alive. And then, slowly it grows and grows and grows. And, as soon as you know it, you've got plenty of people watching out for you and you're watching out for them. And that's kind of what I've got, The only other thing I can think of, and it's something that one of my bosses told me, and it's something that I keep to heart is, if someone gets you a gig, you should try to get them one as well. It's a pass back and forth, so you're not just kind of taking and then running with it. If that client comes back to you trying to hire you, pitch your friend again, pitch the one who pitched you, and keep the ball rolling, keep everyone working, because if everyone's working, then, it's a lot more opportunities to go around. So, keep those group chats alive and, try to pay people back because they'll pay you back, hopefully,
That's true. I'm actually going to join Discord shortly because I'm going to do the 40-hour film festival and we're meeting on Discord.
Oh,
So
awesome.
I'll be the newest Discord joiner.
Ditto. No, I mean, that's really it. I think it's tough because we are the game design major. We're the most socially awkward major. And our biggest problem is honestly talking to people. And I think another problem, our community here in Massachusetts is so small. We have the Meetup app where I think right now that's like our biggest way to know what's going around Boston, and making sure that you have that Meetup app and you're aware of the Boston community. And that's how you kind of, socialize and make connections here. I think the big problem that we're still trying to figure out is how do we go beyond this community? How do we get outside of the Massachusetts area? How do we get people around the whole country to know that we exist? How do we get people around the world to know that we exist? I'm still trying to figure that out. If any of you have the answer, please let me know.
I think, as a professional who's out of college, there's a lot to be said for keeping your presence on LinkedIn alive. I know everyone's like, oh, LinkedIn, yeah, we do it, but I mean, you don't have to message people either. You can just comment on a fellow student's post or a person that you know and just kind of get that back and forth going, because people a lot of times will comment back on your things if you comment something on their posts. And then also another thing I'll say is that for me, networking in this profession started in my classrooms when I was in school, in the classes. when we would meet for group projects, then I would get to know the people who were in my projects with me, and then those friends, you know, became resources that I could call upon for internship or for if I need help professionally. And I think something that I could have done better when I was at school too is to maybe push a little harder for those kind of relationships. But you guys can.
Can you tell us a little bit about the transition from college to the professional world for you? So whether that was finding your first job or creating your company or developing a freelance network, whatever that means for you.
I'll start. I'm sure that there's still the internship program with the Communications Media Department. My placement was, I actually had 2 internships, and one of them was with a debunked healthcare company called Titus Health Plan, and my manager,
That one.
yeah, my manager at that internship, he was a great guy, and you know, we kept in contact after the internship ended. You know, I was searching for a job throughout the summer. The fall time rolled around, and there was a startup that caught my eye, and I just reached out to someone on LinkedIn, and they said, yeah, phone call. I go in for an interview. I give my list of references, and the person interviewing me went to prom with my supervisor at Titus Health Plan, which just proves that networking is like the most important thing. And I think like if it wasn't for that randomness, I may not have gotten that first job. But yeah, networking was what got me my first job. And then that first experience really cascaded into the next experience, and yeah, that's all it is.
I'll go next because mine's lame. So I got very lucky. My internship was with Boston Digital Productions, and we were in the midst of working on a 30-minute documentary. And I proved my worth, and I did so well that they hired me on. I expected to only stay through the length of the project, but by the time it rolled, I became so invaluable that I've been with them ever since. So, you know, I got lucky. They're a great group, and you know, so like I said, I wish I had a better story, but I lucked out, so I can't complain.
I will actually go next because I have the same exact story. This is my boss sitting right here, Josh. I guess we just hit it off so great that after internship I stayed. He hasn't been able to get rid of me yet. So.
I mean, for me, it was just, I'd escaped off to corporate world for a while, and then my friend Gina, who I was friends with here at Fitchburg State, she forwarded a casting to me from Boston Casting looking for a stand-in under 4.6. And I did, and stupidly, don't do what I did. So they were asking for pictures, and I sent in one with me and Hayden Christensen from Star Wars. Why? I don't know why I thought I should have sent like a body shot or like a headshot or something like that. No, I didn't. I was like, oh, I'm not going to get it. And I sent it in. Don't do that. When they ask you for a picture, it means headshot or maybe like a 3/4 shot or something like that. Like, don't send them like a picture from a Comic-Con. That's not going to work.
I'll think of that. Try next.
That's awesome.
No, I got to my
But it worked,
card
but
from that job.
But it worked though.
It did. Also, do not be careful if you're an actor. Don't join SAG too early. I did. I became a must join. A must join, you gotta pay up, and then it ties your hands into like you can't do any indie movies or anything like that. It ties your hands. I got 2 very lengthy standing gigs back to back and became a must join. So that it became harder for me to create a reel. So be careful. And I'll also explain this too. You can join SAG locally or you can join SAG nationally. It's less expensive locally. They'll let you like break it up because you have to pay, of course. You have to pay your dues. So locally it's like $1,000 something, and they'll break that into installments for you. But here's the thing: Connecticut half of Connecticut is our New England local, the other half is not. How did I learn that? Because I got a gig in Stamford, Connecticut, which is not part of the local. Then you have to pay the other grant to join SAG National, and they will not divide that into installments. So be careful. Don't join SAG too early. All right? There you go. That's my piece.
I think for me, in a lot of ways, I'm still transitioning out of college. I graduated last year, so it hasn't been that long. And I started the company while I was still in college. I think the big thing for me is I love learning and I love teaching. And I never want to be separate from this space. Not necessarily Fitchburg State. Granted, I love Fitchburg State. But the idea, I've always had a love for games. But I think through being here, I found that I had a love for learning and teaching. So for me, getting a job teaching people game design, like that's a big thing for me. And I guess the company is still running. We're making 2 more games, so I guess that's still chugging along too. Yeah, I guess if I'm ever back here for another Visions, I'll probably have a better answer about how that transition is going.
Grow up. Who's growing up?
Never grow up.
Exactly. So we're communications media, of course. Media-related fields are always changing. How do you stay current? Are there, what are you reading or watching or playing, or are there things that you're doing to stay current in the field?
For me, it's keeping up with the software, of the times. Like I said, my primary focus is Avid still, but Boston Digital Productions, we went to Premiere around 2 or 3 years ago now. I've dabbled in DaVinci throughout the years. It's really keeping up with the technology of the time. I've tried out plenty of other film softwares as well, editing softwares. Filmora I've given a shot at. CapCut I've given a shot at. It's really staying in tune with what folks are using and the techniques that they're using with it. In this day and age with TikTok and all that, you're looking at like really snappy transitions and elements and that kind of stuff. So knowing how to pull those off will just kind of shine your make your reel shine a little bit more. Motion graphics especially, or animation. It's something that I'm still coming around on. I love making a good lower third, but you got to know how to animate in After Effects or DaVinci Fusion. Keeping up to date with that kind of stuff, I think, is crucial. And as with all professions, knowing AI and where your limit is with your own personal choices. For the Nova, I learned how to use 11 Labs, their AI voiceover software, because for a while, for the documentaries, we were using one of the executive producers, and he had to record every single line change, and we had to eventually let him go from the project because his contract was up. So we turned to 11 Labs and learned, voice cloned him. And so I got really good at making the fake robot sound lifelike, that it became my job to create the new voiceovers. And then that turned into me assisting with the actual voiceover artist when it came time to fully narrate the piece, and struggling because the AI talks faster than a human can. So then it became, balancing the two of those things, So just knowing your tools, and again, where your limit stands on some of these newer technologies, because, it is part of the process now. I use another one from Adobe called podcast.adobe.com. If you have an Adobe login, it's free as far as I can still remember. I just used it the other day, so I hope it still is connected to it. And it wipes out room tone. I've saved outdoor recordings by throwing snippets of it through there, and the wind could be blowing right into the mic, and it kicks out something that sounds like you recorded it in the studio. And it's tools like that I think have become crucial for me, and maintaining these things on the slightly limited budgets that a group like mine works with. So just knowing your technology, knowing when to use a certain software, and keeping up with that software. because you never know. The next gig you could be working on, they want to go back to Final Cut, and you got to know how to boot back up Final Cut, or DaVinci, and you got to remember how to make a database. It's these things can get tough at times, and so just knowing your tech, and on the production side of things, knowing the new lighting packages, even if you don't know it intimately, but knowing LED versus fluorescent versus incandescent, all that kind of stuff, like it's crucial to just keep up to date with that kind of stuff and just kind of follow along, even if it's not something you're super, that's not your focus, because you never know when that bit of info is going to be critical to the next project you're on.
If I could actually jump in, I agree with a lot of what you said, and I think understanding the software from a game developer's standpoint is really important. If I could kind of direct that mindset more closely to game engines, though, I think like a lot of the students here use Unity, and I would say a way to keep modern is by exploring other game engines. I think it's important. One, I'd like to say there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the game industry right now. If I could say it in a less elegant way, I think the game industry is kind of fucked right now. That's a big reason why we started our own company, because we want to figure out what works for us. I think one of the reasons why the game industry is in a bad place right now is partly because of Unity. I don't want to say it's just Unity, it's a lot of things. But I think the thing I really want to press to the game designers here is understand that you are not a Unity developer, you're a game developer. Do not tie yourself to any software. I highly suggest going with Godot, especially if you're comfortable with Unity. It's a hell of a lot cheaper. I would the things you can make with Unreal is amazing. And even some of the folks here are more familiar with film, like that even crosses over with film. So if the game industry burns tomorrow, and I mean, if you have Unreal skill, congratulations, you're also, you're in film now. So just always be prepared to pivot to something else. And again, if you're dealing with software in any capacity, honestly, if you're a human being on this earth, be prepared to pivot. It's going to be a weird couple of years. Like, just be ready to make a move in a different direction.
And I think also to jump off of that in relation to graphic design and like public relations, I think when I went to school, everyone used Adobe, and probably everyone still does, but like everybody along down the line has been saying, it's really important to be able to pivot. So like for me, that means being able to work in Canva as well, which I know not everyone's favorite. And then also staying current in this type of role, it's like you don't want to be using AI to generate your content, but it's almost, in my opinion, unavoidable at this point. So it's kind of about just like figuring out how to get the AI system and whatever you're using to generate your ideas, your content, how to get it to do what you need to do to like 80%, and then you need to be the one that gets it to the next 100%. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like it's coming for us. We're all gonna end up using it. I use it already. We just have to learn how to make it work the best for us as the like person using the tool.
I think that a common theme here has been like networking, and in tech in general, I think networking takes the form of conferences, whether it's like Microsoft Ignite or DrupalCon or whatever you may go to. You in corporate America, at least, my company just like pays for me to go to a conference, and I'll go there and network and talk to people, and that's the key, is talking to people. And staying curious. Earlier it was mentioned that you don't want to tie yourself to one software. And in the web world or the software development world, like, you don't want to tie yourself to a front-end technology like Angular or a web technology like WordPress, because those may just disappear, or the companies may have a feud with one another, like in WordPress's case recently. You're not a WordPress developer and you're not an Angular developer, you're a web developer or a software developer. Those are just tools, and the tools don't really matter, they come and go. The core concrete skills that you learn are what matter.
I'll say from a film and theater standpoint, which I don't think anyone who's like in your 20s, I don't think it'll matter, but it's all about, ever since COVID-19, self-tapes. So have your like background, have your self-tape set up, master the art, learn some kind of software to learn how to clip your reels, get your audio sorted out, things like that, because it's not a lot in person auditions, it's all pretty much online submissions now. So for me, 40, so that's something I had to learn. So I don't think it'll pertain to youngins so much, but it is all self-tapes and stuff like that. So master the art, get your backgrounds, get your mics, and learn how to edit.
Get that podcast equipment.
Yeah, exactly. Your ring light, absolutely.
So I'd like to open this up to questions from the audience. And when you came in, there were some index cards. I don't know if people wrote any questions down on those, but if you do, actually, yes, Samantha will collect them. And it looks like I have a hand up in the audience as well. So Rob.
I'm so curious, I didn't anticipate this, that in your last answers, all 5 of you, when asked about staying current, talked almost exclusively about tools, technologies, the technical dimension, and there were fantastic responses. I'm also curious how you continue to move forward with your creative chops, how you get better at what you do beyond that particular dimension or in relationship to that dimension.
I guess I would say, like, especially with self-tapes and stuff like that, like, get used to like talking to a screen instead of another person. Getting more comfortable with that versus like being able to say something or perform to someone in person.
I'm going to sharpen my question. You're an actor. How do you get to be a better actor as a creator, for instance?
Keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, take classes. That's it. You learn by doing. Don't stop. Jump in the classes.
Can I have an attempt at answering this too? For me, whenever I have a goal or a thing that I want to do, and this started when I first joined Fitchburg State, I first found the problem. The problem I had first was I wanted to make hand-drawn graphics move on the screen by a player. So that was my goal, and my assignment was to do that. After that, it was like, okay, time to make a game. And I made a game, and then I made 20 games, and all of those games were shit, except for one of them, Goob and Balloons. And then once I had that one good game that a lot of people liked, that became my next problem. It was like, okay, what's the next step for Goob and Balloons? Getting it on console. For us, we were impassioned because, as far as I know, we didn't know of any other students that did that at the time. And we just wanted to do it. We wanted to see what problems we would run into. And then it became a problem of, how do we get it on Xbox? How do we get it on the Nintendo Switch? How do we get it here? I would suggest, instead of looking at things very broadly and saying, oh, I need to do all of these things, find the one thing that you need to address the problem. This may just be from like a programming standpoint. I'm kind of thinking about this, but in programming, identify the bug, squish it. I do think you could take that mentality to your goals as well.
I have a really simple answer, and it's just assuming that the way you did it isn't the best way to do it, and assuming that you have something to learn from a peer or a manager, and that there's always room for improvement. You know, like my manager is a really talented developer, and he'll come to me all the time and say, hey, can you look at this thing and just give me your perspective on it. And regardless of what language it's coded in or what technology we're working with or what app we're developing, he values my input and I value his input on my work. And I think that's kind of the key to always learning and developing your core skills, is assuming that you're wrong and not always right.
For some of what I do, it's easy to look at the results and benchmark from there. And then, so in the marketing part of the job, you look at, which ad performed better, which ad didn't get as good of results, and then you can jump off from there. But as far as like my creative, like sharpening my creative chops, I guess I'm still learning that one. Still figuring that one out. I look a lot at other content that is in the same realm as what I'm putting out, and I check out what other businesses are doing, other interior design firms are doing, and then I don't emulate that, but I kind of use it as a point, I guess.
Great. So we have time. We have time for just a couple of questions from the audience. So so I've got a couple cards here. So in fact, we might have time for one. Really. So I guess I'll roll a couple of, because we got a couple of really similar questions. So I'm going to kind of roll them into one. Are you concerned about job security? And then related to that, how do have recent strikes, specifically in film and video and in other fields, layoffs in terms of game, affected your work, and how does current news affect your work or your professional field? 3 hard hitters, but I'm kind of rolling them into one if you have anything to say about any of those.
Job security, unfortunately, is a myth. When I was working at a grocery store, there was always customers coming in saying, "Oh, I heard Shaw's got bought out." I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, I don't think you're gonna have a job very soon." I'm like, "Okay." You know what? They're right, because I moved on to the next thing. And whether or not you're working retail, whether or not you're starting your own company, whether or not you're at Nintendo, job security is a myth. I think the best thing you can do for yourself is educate yourself. And again, always be prepared to pivot. And I guess to answer the recent events thing really quickly, the tariffs are making video game development very expensive. There's a reason why the Switch is selling games for $80. That's painful. And that's kind of the future we're walking into. I think it's going to be a tough ask for people who are developing games like myself to ask people for $80 for a video game, $90 in some cases. But yeah, technology is going to get really expensive very quickly. I would suggest either buying your technology now while you can, or finding ways to use lightweight technology and lightweight software. Like Blender, you could run Blender on a toaster. Godot, you could run it off of I'm not even kidding about this, you can run it off a USB stick. I have Godot running on my phone. Like, I legitimately can have a game engine on my phone. Think about ways you can do what you do cheaper, because things are about to get very expensive.
And going on to the other side of that, like you said, job security is a myth. The beauty of being a professional video editor is I am perma-freelance. I like to say I'm employed at BDP. Really, I send them an invoice every 2 weeks if I have enough hours to justify it, So what's been going on in our corner of the world, it's slow. Like, I'm very thankful to have a lot of repeat clients and a lot of folks that like the groups that I work with, because otherwise, between the strikes and all the other things going on, it is crawling. We just lost one of BDP's bigger contracts was with the VA, and they full on dropped us. They said our contract is no longer necessary, and I think the entire wing that we worked with was let go. Like it is scary and it is not fun. And so really the biggest thing I can say is take advantage of the time you have and work on things that you find creatively fulfilling. You know, it's not gonna pay the bills, you know. Again, I'm very thankful to have the groups that I'm with and that those groups are finally picking up work, because I didn't do much with BDP January, February, March. We've only just started to pick up again this year. And so, you know, if you are in that kind of slowdown and you can, you know, afford it, use that time to make the things you want to make and hopefully spin that off into something else. Like I said, I use my evenings to build a superhero universe with some other alumni, because hopefully that will be our golden parachute. Hopefully that will get us independent from the rest of everything going on, you know, and just, you know, be prepared, be ready to pivot, be ready to go through a couple of really sucky years, because we're already in the dog water, it seems. And there, you know, the only thing you can do is look out for you and yours and your communities and build those communities stronger and keep getting each other work and keep trying to get each other's bills paid. It sucks. I wish, you know, I didn't have to say that, but it's the reality that we're in. It's scary out there and it is slow. And if you can find something, grab onto it and make yourself needed, you know, because there is no job security. There is no guarantee that the next project is coming anymore. Because for all you know, that group you've been working with for years is on its way out the door. You know, you don't know how in the red your client is in. You just know how in the red you are. So, you know, just try to stay positive. Try to keep working, and don't feel the fear. Use that fear to create something new. Like, you know, the independent game studio. Perfect, you know, if y'all's bills are getting paid, like that is amazing. Like that is what you should be striving for these days. You know, find the client work to pay the bills, really make your connections and build those studios, because that's the only way you're gonna guarantee it, you know. It's why these days the people making the most money are the ones off of social media running their own vlog channels and all that kind of crap, you know, because that's where the money is these days. It sucks, but that's what I've seen, you know? So just be ready, and like I said, the only positive spin I got is use the time that you've got, and you make something worthwhile with it, because at least you can say it's yours, you know? Especially in the world of NDAs, because you never know what you're not gonna be able to put in a reel anyways. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I guess I have one more thing to Sorry. We had a publisher for our last game, and when it came to finding funding, there were a lot of moments where our publisher was like, they're in the Czech Republic, and they would be like, damn, do any of you guys live in Canada? Any of you in the UK? And then I thought that was very odd. I'm like, huh, why do you ask? It's like, well, we would have no problem getting you grants if you just live somewhere else. I don't know. I don't know. It's just kind of.
This was a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Sorry to make this such a Debbie Downer.
It's a fun question.
Of course, I really opened up the question. But.
Oh, I think that, going off of that, I think you guys can say job security is a myth, but there are jobs in the world and people do sit in the seats and do the things. And so if you get a job that you love, my best piece of advice is to make yourself invaluable. I know other people have already said that, but like, do the thing. Like if your boss needs help with something and you're like, I'm not really sure if I know how to do this, Google it. Ask ChatGPT about it. Solve the problem, because that's what's going to make you invaluable, and that's what's going to provide you with job security, in my opinion anyways.
No, so I'll say something brief. I think that job security is, if you're worried about job security, you should be worried about job security. And if you're not worried about it, you shouldn't worry about it, because you don't have to worry about it. If you've differentiated your skills to the point where you can pivot into a different job if what you have goes away, then you'll be fine. But if you've pigeonholed yourself into one very small niche thing, then you may have something to worry about. And when it comes to graphic design, you can differentiate yourself into web design or UX design or web development. In my case, it has turned into software development. It's not something I think about.
I don't have anything really super unique to add. I mean, it's slow. Period.
So,
It's slow. There is no job security, and but I will say that at the moment, and who knows what'll happen, like with the terrorists and stuff like that. It's probably a better climate right now to be like in indie filmmaking rather than union filmmaking. Because who knows what's going to happen to the unions. And most of the jobs, because of the LA fires with the strikes and everything, a lot of the big films are moving to film overseas. What's going to happen with that? Who knows? So just do what you can. Stay alive. Swim. Swim. And don't be afraid to take another job while you're chasing your dream too. Because you can always use, like say, and I was explaining this to Wylder earlier, like say if you're really into cars, then you can learn to be a precision car driver. You can do that for films. Like you can read castings. I guess like casting today, looking for an experienced person to cut bluefin tuna. Like whatever you've got, whether you're an EMT, you can make yourself get a pay bump work as an EMT on a film. Whatever you got to do as a side job, let that inform your whatever you want to do, whether it's game making, whether it's an actor, whether it's in film. You can tie it all together. Don't be afraid to do your research and just keep swimming. That's all you can do.
perfect. I really appreciate your candid responses to this. I want to end on a positive note. I want to, we go down the line very quickly. What do you like best about your job?
Oh my gosh.
One thing.
One thing? One thing? One thing?
One
Oh my
thing.
gosh. I think reaching the end of a show like in theater, and when it's gone well and you've remembered every single line and then everybody claps, that's a good thing. I like that.
Nice.
Getting to be creative, the nice thing with the projects I get to work on is I get a lot of freedom with my edits and just getting to tell stories, especially stories that matter. We do a lot of stuff with mental health organizations and, like I said, doing VA research videos. We talk about a lot of really neat topics, and getting to put your mark on it as the editor, getting the information out the way that you think is the most effective, and getting to see an awesome video at the end of the day. That's all we're here for. I love telling stories, and I love that I get to tell them through my edits. That's all I really got. It's the best part of the gig, is getting to see the final product and knowing all of the journey that went into it. It's all usually a heck of a ride.
I liked that I get to work with my friends. I don't know. Yeah, I was really blessed to be able to work with very talented people. And it's great being able to face challenges with them. I think life would be far too boring if there was no challenges in front of us. It's great.
Love it.
My favorite thing about my job is the creative flexibility, but also the work-life balance flexibility that I get to have. So I meet the deadlines and everything's good, and I also get to go to the theme park with my daughter if it's a nice day out, which you can't really beat that.
I think that corporate America, there's a lot of benefits to it. The benefits, the pay, the location, all of those things are great, but ultimately, I like working with really talented people every day who are really skilled at what they do, who energize me to do better each day. And that's my favorite part.
Excellent. So please join me in a round of applause for our